Google's giving the boot to certain keywords. Instagram dumps a short-lived feature. We get a 3-minute advertising lesson, and we talk about marketing things that make a big difference. All this and more on today's Strong Coffee Drip. Hi, everyone. Back for another week. Excited to be joined by Duncan and Ian. How you guys doing? Everything's going well?
Pretty good.
I haven't really seen you guys this week. It's been a very busy week, but it's great to see your smiling faces and happy to be back. The weather's starting to warm up. The sun is shining, and it's a good day all around. So you know what? Let's get right into it. We covered a lot of topics last week and had a lot of feedback on certain videos. One video in particular was our discussion again about the great Mario debate. I'm not bringing that up again. I don't care anymore. We've moved past that. For most people, it's clearly Mario, and we will live with that. But let's kind of continue down that road. Let's get started with just a simple question to get our brains going. Guys, what's your favorite video game of all time? Ian, I'm going to go to you first because I have some ideas as to what Ian's might be. Ian, what are you thinking?
That is a very hard question to just drop on me.
No, I know. That's why I did it.
That was the point.
Yeah. Probably Mega Man 2 on the NES, going old school.
Yeah. That's a good. And Ian and I, you and I are about the same age, within like a year or something like that. Surprised you didn't go Sega Master System, which is fine because I know you're a big Sega guy.
Well, I was thinking of going Sega Saturn. I was thinking of the Sega rallies and things like that. But I went back to my roots.
Back to your roots. Duncan, what about you? Were you a big video game guy growing up, Duncan? No. So this question is perfect for you.
Yeah, right. This question is perfect for me. I think for me, like the one and only game that I was actually kind of into was StarCraft.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I loved Protoss. I was a Protoss guy for StarCraft for years. It was a fun little strategy game. It's probably my first little dabble in strategy games. Nowadays, I just play that chess.com app all the time because it's actually pretty good at training and teaching you how to play that game.
Yeah.
But that's
Duncan,
me.
I had guessed for you a very obvious choice, which you probably didn't even think about, a game that we have in our office.
Oh, yeah. Golden Tee. I don't really consider that like a video game, I guess. I guess it is, but
I guess
it's on a TV, but it's an arcade game.
True.
Yeah,
there is a mobile version of Golden Tee.
I guess there was, like in my 20s, and even I guess now in my 30s. Golden Tee has always been a fun little game. I used to play competitively on that and win some money too.
Wow. And for anybody that doesn't know, it gets shown a little bit on our social. It used to get shown way more when we were in the office. We have a 2005 Golden Tee arcade game in our office. And Duncan's actually very, very good. It's rare that somebody beats Duncan.
Rare. But, I have all the records. I have best score on all the courses. What do you mean? Don't give up false information here, Brian.
Duncan, you only have the Golden Tee records when the thing's plugged in. And then when we go home at the end of the day and we unplug it, you don't have the records anymore.
Well, every single time I'm on there, I have the records. That's all I know.
Okay. I have beaten Duncan before, but not very often. Duncan is very, very good at Golden Tee. So congrats to you, Duncan. Office Golden Tee champ. For me, I'm going old school, and I actually brought a prop. My favorite video game of all time is not Mario, although he sits over my shoulder here. I do enjoy anything to do with him, Mario Kart, etc. But I was a Sega guy growing up, and I liked the Sega version of Mario, a little less known, Alex Kidd in Miracle World.
Oh, wow. That is old school.
There's Alex Kidd right there. I still have it. A little bit worse for wear on the side here. I haven't played it in a long time. I really like. Did you ever play Alex Kidd, Ian?
Yeah, I think back in the day, I remember a friend of mine had a Master System with Alex Kidd, and California Games was the other one I remember playing.
California Games, another good one. Yep. So there you go. A little thing to get our brains going, a little brain teaser to get going before we start talking about marketing. And before I forget a few shout outs from the past week as well. A shout out to all of our friends down in Brooks, Alberta. I was down in Brooks yesterday speaking at a conference. A really, really cool conference about immigration in rural Alberta. So had a good time there. Forgot how far Brooks was from Edmonton. It was a very long day, but nonetheless enjoyed it, and saw some cool things along the way. Stopped in Drumheller, saw the big dinosaur. He's still there. So that was fun. A shout out to Rand Fishkin from Spark Toro. We mentioned Spark Toro last week on the podcast, and Rand was nice enough to give us a couple shout outs on social, thanking us for mentioning his amazing tool. So kudos to him. And also a shout out to the team from the Sunday Refocus podcast. They're going to be doing some recording in our studio this weekend. A really cool podcast about fashion. Highly encourage you to check it out, and we'll have some stuff going up on our social, some photos from when they get recording here on Saturday. So 3 shout outs before we get going. Lots going on. I want to start this week with a round of Do You Care? I'm going to give you 2 marketing stories that are in the news right now and going to ask you a simple question. Do you care? Question number 1, story number 1. Google is notifying advertisers that they're going to be pausing low activity keywords. Basically, if the keywords haven't generated any impressions in a year, they're going to be removed from campaigns. Google says this strategy is designed to help advertisers focus on valuable keywords, but some advertisers don't like the change as they find some value in keeping these low value keywords around for a variety of reasons. Do you care? I'm going to start with Duncan because this is really in Duncan's wheelhouse. 2 questions for you, Duncan. Do you care? And have you seen this notification from Google?
Yes and yes. But I mean, the way that Google's changed a lot over the last couple of years. They're phrase matching and exact matching keywords, which I know for most of our readers won't make any sense, but it's more or less different ways for Google to match to the keywords that you put in there. That's changed. So like it used to be very specific. If you have a very specific term that you want to show for, you just put square brackets around it and you tell Google that's what the only keyword I want to show for. But nowadays it shows for a lot of synonyms and a lot of variations of that. So what we've been finding is that there's a lot of keywords that get no traffic because it's matching to other keywords, but just synonyms or slight variations of the original. So I think in the long term, it probably doesn't have that much of an effect, but I also can understand the advertiser's point of view because a lot of times there's Google's admitted it themselves that they, like, I think it's like, 15% of every Google search is brand new. It's never seen it before because we keep typing different and more things into Google search. So if you are an advertiser and you're trying to show for a certain specific term or phrase, I don't really see any reason as to why it causes problems of just leaving that keyword in there. I don't understand why Google does it, but I imagine it's maybe a computing power thing. Like it's constantly trying to match for keywords that never exist, and it's just a waste of resources is my guess. I don't know. I don't think it's going to have much of an impact on performance. It almost just seems like an unnecessary task to get rid of the keywords, but if it is really what I think it is, it's like a database thing, then I guess Google's allowed to make that choice and that decision.
Yeah. Ian, how about you? Something you really care about or not really? I know you and I aren't really in the advertising realm like Duncan is.
Yeah. No, I think Duncan brings up a great point. I mean, as you mentioned, Brian, it's keywords that haven't seen any impressions whatsoever in 13 months. But as Duncan mentioned, it can have a knock-on effect to, synonyms and things like that. So I think the impact, as Duncan just said, I think the impact will be minimal, but at the same time, it will have a small impact on particular advertisers. So for that reason, it's kind of,
My answer is whatever Duncan says. So I'm going with him. Story number 2. This was kind of interesting because I don't even know if you guys would know about this. I know, Duncan lives in the social realm, advertising realm. I live more in the social realm, and Ian manages the circus from a day-to-day standpoint. Instagram is moving on from a feature that many people didn't even know existed. There's a little black key logo at the bottom of your Instagram profile, and you can click it, and your Instagram feed switches over to another side. It was called Instagram Flipside. It was a feature that allowed users to post content for certain groups of people instead of publicly displaying it to the world. Think of it like a private feed for your closest friends. It wasn't an awful idea. I think there are people that got a lot of value out of it where they could post additional content that was only meant for a certain group of people. Flipside was introduced earlier this year, but Instagram has already decided to ditch it. Rest in peace, Flipside. The same question for both of you. Do you care? First of all, did you know it existed? And second of all, do you care? Ian.
Answer to question one. No, I did not know it existed until we started talking about it. Answer to number two.
No, I don't care.
No, I don't care either. I mean, we know that Meta has obviously had an ongoing battle with fake accounts for some time. And I think the introduction of this was an attempt to... Numerous people on the platform obviously have fake accounts or secondary accounts. And I think it was an attempt to cut down on those by Meta. I don't know if it was ever even really rolled out fully, was it, Brian, or was it only ever to a select audience?
It was there. We had it on ours, and I tested it one time. But when it came out, there wasn't a big to do about it. All of a sudden, it was just kind of there, and then you had to do a little bit of research to figure out what it was. There was a notification, but it wasn't this big,
because it was a slow rollout. Yeah, slow rollout from February, I believe, or late January, early February, and I feel like it may have been of interest to people who are influencers, who want to have that degree of privacy, but I don't know if it would have had a huge impact on a huge number of other people using the platform. And for that reason, that might have been why they decided to pull the plug after just 3 or 4 months. They realized that it hasn't actually done much to change the number of fake accounts on Instagram. The Finstas, if you will.
Finstagram, yeah. And you bring up a good point. I actually didn't really even think about that. Instead of somebody having a secondary account to display content to a certain group of people, it's almost like it gave you 2 accounts in one by hitting Flipside, and the whole thing spins around. So, Duncan, how about you? Did you know about it, and do you care?
Yes and no. I knew about it. I mean, Instagram has always had the ability to create close groups. So like with your stories, you can have a close group and you can show certain photos over to a certain group and not to others, to the public. So your close friends see certain stories that other people won't. And I think Flipside was sort of the attempt to make that for a more of a feed. Like you would have pictures on this Flipside that people could go and look at, but only people that you selected. I don't know. Part of me thinks it was a test to see if there's a use case for it on Instagram. But then the other part of me thinks that it was just, they already kind of had something like it. So the question kind of became in my head, is this like their attempt at an OnlyFans-like thing, to be honest, versus just try to compete with that market in some way, or building out a framework that would eventually allow them to, maybe there's people could charge to see the flip side or whatever it may be. Because a lot of influencers would like something like that. But the fact that they got rid of it quickly after making no announcement that it was even there in the first place, it almost just seems like it was some sort of half-assed attempt to, I don't know. It seemed very odd. It did not seem like they promoted it very well. I was a little confused by it. It kind of reminded me a bit of Threads. Like it just kind of arrived and then, hey, use this. I don't know. It doesn't seem like that team is really on the ball when it comes to promoting and building up hype for their own upcoming product launches. I don't know. I'm confused.
They should have ran some Instagram ads to tell you about Flipside.
Well, they should have created some hype. I mean, I don't know who was working on their marketing team, but it just appeared and then randomly started hearing about Flipside, and then, okay, I see what this is trying to be, and then it went away. Okay, wow.
Maybe the lack of acknowledgement was really that it was only supposed to be some sort of test. Are they just testing the water, like you said, just seeing, hey, would people be interested in
That's
this?
That's not how you do
idea
a test.
That this not
you
the
don't
finish.
Open a test to everyone.
They can do whatever they want.
Yeah, it was a slow
but like if you wanted to do a test, you'd pick a market and then you test it, you build up hype. I mean, that's how Facebook started. It was just Ivy League schools that's what Facebook was, and then everyone heard about it from their friends who had Ivy League friends, and then they wanted to be a part of it, and then it slowly opened its way up. The exclusivity is what drives demand a lot of the times if the product is good. But if you open it up to everyone right off the get-go, then it's not going to work.
Just as we mentioned last week or a couple weeks ago about how TikTok's testing their version of Instagram in only a couple countries, right? That's how they're choosing to do it. So I don't know. For me, I don't really care. I kind of saw why they brought it out in the first place, but it wasn't something that was really on my radar. And when I go and speak or talk to clients, not once did anybody ask me what it was, even though it was sitting there. This black key was sitting there. So I'm okay with Flipside going away. Goodbye, Flipside. Thank you for your short time here and for contributing very little to the Instagram experience for most people. I know there were some people that heavily used it. But,
rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Flipside.
Or pieces.
Right. Let's roll into a new segment called 3-Minute Lesson. This is where we're going to cram in as much knowledge as we can about a certain topic in 3 minutes. Today, Duncan has been voluntold that he has 3 minutes to tell us about programmatic advertising. And to help keep this segment to 3 minutes, we're bringing back an old friend. If you watched some of our first few episodes, you remember the horn? We used to blare the horn when you went too long. We brought it back. I've got it queued up here, ready to go. Get my timer set here for 3 minutes. Duncan, as the director of advertising at Strong Coffee, you use a variety of advertising platforms on a daily basis. Can you tell us in a nutshell, to people that maybe have no idea what this is all about, what's programmatic advertising?
Timer starts now, I'm assuming.
Timer starts now.
All right. So programmatic advertising is sort of a buzzword to describe advertising that is directed and controlled by machine learning or algorithms to try and find the right audiences. So it is a bit of a buzzword because if Google Ads does this, like Performance Max campaigns, display campaigns, they all have a level of interaction where they're trying to go and find audiences using signals that person is using as they navigate the web, using their search queries, etc., to try and find them and show ads to them that they think would be appealing. Programmatic does this to a little bit of a different level in the sense that it allows for some pretty customized targeting, and it also allows for access to platforms that Google doesn't always have access to. So a lot of the times you have access to third-party publishers, which kind of group together. So you might get stuff on Fortune or CNN or news sites or kind of high-profile websites that are not really offering Google ad space on their inventory. So programmatic often has like these little groups of websites that you can't normally reach in their repertoire. And they have their little tracking cookies on there that give them a little bit more detail as to what the people are searching for, what the content on the site is about. And it goes and tries to find people to show your ad to. It can get even more complex than that. I mean, you can do geofences with programmatic where, if you have a conference that people are attending and you want to try and hit people or kind of collect mobile IDs to show ads to people over a longer period of time, you can say, okay, I want to geofence this conference center for the 2 days of the conference, build my list of people that are attending there, and then I can advertise to them over the next month or so, as long as they were captured in that initial geofence. So that's pretty cool. It also gives you access to third-party lists. So a lot of companies have lists of individuals or lists of mobile IDs based on certain user behavior, which could be people who are shoppers, people who are, indigenous, people who just got out of high school, people who are parents with high school kids, tech-focused people with Apple phones. So kind of like there's so many different ways to target people, and we use them in a lot of different ways. But you can layer these on top of each other, and there's a big old algorithm behind it that's designed to try and drive conversions. All I will say is a lot of platforms, including Google, kind of offer something similar. I just find that generally programmatic is probably the be-all, end-all of the cool stuff that you can do. The geofencing is really kind of neat, and it gets really narrow with the people you're trying to target. So a lot of people like it. But well,
That was good, Duncan.
That was great.
mic drop.
Wow. Good. Good job, Duncan. Good job. Clap for yourself if you want, I guess. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, there's so much in there, Duncan. But yeah, the idea of basically using different technology to help kind of automate and find new audiences. And like you said, programmatic isn't necessarily like there's some platform called programmatic. It's just that kind of buzzword that's kind of an umbrella term for using new technologies to find people, get in front of people, using different data points, etc. So good job. Well done, Duncan. Anything you want to add, even though the horn is blown? Or I think you were wrapping up right at the right minute.
I was. The only thing I'll add is generally programmatic deals in CPM, which is cost per 1,000 impressions. So it is an impression-based platform, whereas things like Google Ads, while they can do impression-based, usually we lean towards conversion-focused bidding strategies or even click-based bidding strategies. Programmatic does kind of have that, but generally they lean towards the impressions. So it's a little bit different of a model in that sense. It's more about visibility. So we tend to see it more often used for awareness campaigns or people trying to just get their message in front of people. It doesn't work quite as well when it comes to driving conversions, which is where Google search, some things like Meta, form ads, or whatever that may be. So generally it's not used by the regular mom and pop because it's more for that overall brand awareness and exposure than anything else.
Nice job. And you mentioned Google. I guess ad roll would be another way if somebody wanted to kind of investigate this further. Different platforms.
I would recommend StackAdapt personally.
Yeah.
They have a lot of cool tools in there that if you ever get a chance to look at it, I mean, that's a self-serve programmatic platform that's pretty cool and it gives you a lot of tools under your tool belt, including everything I mentioned from the geofencing, the third-party lists, and the really cool targeting parameters. Like it's all in there. So, and it's growing. They launched. They have what's it called? Digital TV on there. They have radio platforms. Like basically any kind of digital channel they can have a touch point on. So I would recommend
all-in-one tool. Thank you, Duncan. Well done. That was our first 3-minute lesson from Duncan about programmatic advertising. Well done.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up today, sometimes it's the little things that make the biggest difference. We often focus on the big, bold features and strategies and forget about some of the simple little things. Guys, what's one known or little known tool or trick or strategy that might be really commonplace or simple for us, but it's often just completely forgotten or relatively unknown? I can go first because I always make you guys go first. I'll go first on this one. I don't know if a lot of people know that you can create things like photo posts and quizzes and polls on YouTube. My unknown tool is a thing called YouTube's Community tab. So we think of YouTube as this video platform where you put up videos and people leave comments, etc. And that's kind of the end of it. But this community tab can actually help pages become a bit more social. It opens a lot of doors for creators to be able to post, like when you post an image or a series of images on Instagram, for example, you can actually create the same post on your YouTube page and people will see it inside of their feed. And this is under the community tab. Now, part of the reason that not a lot of people know about this is because when it was first kind of rolled out, it only was originally available for creators with really large followings. I think at one time it was 10,000 subscribers or something like that. But in more recent times, it's actually open to anyone now. You just have to go into your advanced features on your YouTube channel and turn it on. And once you're able to do that, you're actually able to create all sorts of interesting content. I've seen a few creators put up polls like, give us feedback on what you want us to talk about next. And people can leave their feedback. You can go and look at the results, and then you can create a video that aligns with the feedback you're seeing from your users. We just started using it. I knew it existed, and it was just one more thing that I'd never gotten around to do on the Strong Coffee channel. But I've recently started to use it, and sure enough, you do get some analytics inside the analytics tab showing the number of impressions that your posts get. You can see which posts get the most. And you can set up polls and quizzes to make things a little bit more interactive. So if you do spend a lot of time on YouTube and creating content on YouTube, this community tab and community posts are just one more tool that you can use to help engage your audience. So cool, little, kind of relatively unknown, but something that can make a huge difference in the long run. Duncan, you have any kind of cool, fun little, maybe they don't get used a whole lot or relatively unknown tool you can think about?
Sure. I've been using this for an upcoming trip. I'm going to Europe actually next week, but
humble brag, Duncan. Humble brag.
Humble
Duncan's
brag.
going to Europe.
But it's an old tool actually. It's been around for a while. You guys will probably have heard of it. But Google My Maps. I don't know if you have explored this. Where what you do is you basically like you type in like we're going to Florence. So I typed in Florence, and then I can just type in the chat at the top. I just like top sites in Florence, and then it'll just pin them on your little map immediately. Then you can check which ones you want. And then I did this for restaurants. I did this for the wine windows. Did this for some gelato shops. So and then I printed off the map. So now I have this map of all these places that we could potentially go to while we're in Florence. If it's lived on my phone, I could look at it digitally and see everything. But I'm kind of going back to that old school print because we got our printers connected. I'm like, yeah, let's do this.
Wow.
But Google My Maps is actually kind of cool. Like it's not. I don't have to individually type in every location. I just type the theme of the thing I'm looking for, and it'll plot them on the map, and I can choose which ones I want to have on my final map. So I know it's old, but it's still very valid. Because you know what? I've been using ChatGPT to sort of give me itineraries of things to do. I would just go, we have 3 days in Florence. What are the top sites? Give me some restaurants. And how would you explore it? And it gives you a nice blog post type thing on what to do for each day. But you can't, at least I don't know how to get it so that it kind of maps that journey on a Google map. There may be extensions that allow you to do that, but I couldn't quite figure it out in my short time looking. So I just went to Google My Maps, and then sure enough, you can kind of create those journeys relatively easily and map out and plot all of these places quite quickly. Anyways, that's one for me that I don't think it's really overly useful in the marketing space unless you're doing things like trying to, you're in tourism and you want to plot your city and the different tourist destinations that people can go to and make a printable PDF for it. You can also embed it on your website. So there is valid use cases for it. And I think it's an often overlooked tool because it is so old, but I think it's still very powerful.
It's like Ian and I, old but still powerful, right?
Yeah.
And Duncan, you know what's crazy about that, Duncan? You know what I used this morning? Google My Maps, because I have a map that I've created. Wherever I go and speak somewhere, I put a little pin on the map, so I remember all the places I spoke. So this morning, got that pin going on Brooks, Alberta from yesterday. Nice. So I know all about that tool. Yeah, that was good timing, Duncan. And I hope you have a fantastic trip.
Thank you very much.
Ian, what about you? A little random tool or forgotten strategy or unknown strategy or tool? What can you think of?
Yeah, it's not really a tool as such, but you mentioned sort of forgotten strategies. And what I was going to say was just don't forget your marketing basics. No matter what you're doing, just remember the fundamentals. With all the new tools that are coming out on such a regular basis, and it only feels like it's getting faster, as people try to jump onto new platforms, it's easy to just throw out your marketing fundamentals and feel like you're starting from scratch on this new platform. What's everyone else doing? And but as they say, times change, tools change, people don't. And all the things that you know about your copywriting, your sales, everything like that, just don't forget that. And it can be easy to do when you feel like things are just getting so much faster and new tools are coming out all the time. So,
yeah. I mentioned this to somebody just the other day where we were talking about AI tools. And you're 100% right when you're starting to think about those marketing basics. When we were talking about AI tools, they were saying, well, what tool should I use and all this kind of stuff. And I said, don't start with the tool, start with the problem. Determine the problem you're trying to solve, then figure out which tool will solve that problem. If you simply go based on your tools first and then trying to wedge them into what you're doing, you're never going to get anywhere. So yeah, if you need to understand your marketing basics, your marketing fundamentals, identify the problem you're trying to solve, and then figure out the best tools for that.
Yeah.
That's such a simple one. But yeah, like every day you open your email or you open social and you see like all these new tools that came out, you can get stuck down a rabbit hole in no time trying to figure out, look how cool this is, how can I use it? And it's like, well, figure out the problems you have first and then see if that tool is relevant. So good answers, gentlemen. So another episode in the books. We kept it on the rails. We got some really good insights from Duncan on programmatic advertising. We don't really care about Instagram Flipside. We found out Duncan is going to Europe. I hope you have a fantastic time, Duncan. We'll be expecting some gelato reviews when you return. Take lots of pictures. Get a few stickers for the sticker wall.
I'll see what I can do on the sticker front. Yeah.
Okay. And otherwise, Ian and I will just be here next week, Ian. Hope to see you next week.
Yeah.
We'll do a good job of keeping it on the rails because Duncan won't be here to derail things. And other than that,
things spicy.
Keep things. You go keep things spicy in Europe for a while, Duncan. We'll hold down the fort here. So thanks again, guys, for joining us, and thanks to all of you for tuning in. We're getting lots of fun comments and some cool engagement out on social. So happy to be a part of it. You can always check out our videos across YouTube, TikTok, and beyond. Now, guys, let's get back to work. Goodbye, everyone. Have a fantastic week.
Bye.